Cook. Good to see you guys. Yeah, no, this is. Oh, shut up, Blackjack. Look, I'm just in a mood. I'm going to give a proper show later today, whether it's a Gabbin and Games or I Love the Weird or Open Mic or whatever. But sometimes you just I'll probably delete this because I know people. A lot of people who come to my channel are kind of like, dude, just don't address these things. What's the point? It's entertaining to me, I suppose. I find hello, Ricardo. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. Maybe it's just my background. I don't really have a problem debating and arguing, but I did see this one guy who put this video up recently, and I think that's where a lot of this traffic is coming from, which is fine, but I love you too, Uncensored Maverick. But it was clearly sort of based on an edit to prove their point. We're talking about Dragon Age, and there's now a narrative. It's fun. I mean, what are you going to do? I guess the world says this: if you open your mouth on the internet and you say anything that's not vanilla, people will take it out of context intentionally or not. And then that will become a narrative, and you can either choose to defend it or not. But if you choose not to defend it, it'll take hold for some people. And, you can't really win. And I get that. I'm not a moron. I totally get that. So I'm just, I'm venting, but it doesn't really matter, right? Like I said, I'll probably delete this video because I know some of you guys get sick of them. But anyway, this guy makes this video and he's talking about the Dragon Age thing. And I'm like, I made it very, very clear in both my videos. It's because the narrative now is if Jaffe says, if you don't like Dragon Age, you're a homophobe or a transphobe or a anti-Semite or whatever. That's not what I said. I said, if you don't like Dragon Age because it doesn't feel like Dragon Age, if you don't like Dragon Age because you think the writing is bad, if you don't like Dragon Age for many, many reasons, similarly to those, there's nothing about that that's anything other than you just not liking Dragon Age. And that's fine. It's different than the other Dragon Ages. I get it. But if you're out there banging the drums because it's like, it's fucking woke, then yeah, you're probably a transphobe or a homophobe. You probably are. I mean, you can thread the needle and say, I love Dragon Age, but Dragon Age, now look, I've only played 2 of the Dragon Ages, but my understanding is Dragon Age has always been pretty progressive in terms of its relationships and characters and who you could be and all this stuff. So I just think a lot of this are literally just assholes. But the people who are like, no, I'm a huge fucking fan, man. I'm a huge fucking fan of this franchise. I have been for a very, very long time. And this doesn't feel like Inquisition, which I loved, by the way. Won Game of the Year a couple years back, 10 years ago. Then I'd say, yeah, of course. I get that. That makes sense. Blackjack says the game is flopping. Why give it the energy? I don't care because it's interesting to me. And I'm playing it right now. I'm 15 hours in. It's really good. It's not very well written. I would agree with that criticism. I think it's not horribly written. Some scenes are, but it's but it's a really fun game. It's a really well-made game. Yeah, Ricardo says Inquisition had a trans character, second in command to Iron Bull. So I don't know what the problem is. Han Banana says this game feels like it was written by a trans person. Okay, so what? What does that matter? Maybe it was. Yeah, I'm not trying to sell you on the game. I'm just trying to understand mentality that makes no sense to me. Hello, White Wolf. But let it flop, let it sell. I don't give a shit. You know what excites me though, totally unrelated, but this is where my brain goes, is I'm very curious about how Star Wars Outlaws might do with the update coming out tomorrow or I think it's the next day. I think it's Friday. They're making a lot of changes to it, and then they drop, and it's coming out on Steam, and then they drop the DLC pack with Lando Calrissian this week as well. So, and I fucking loved Outlaws as is. So I'm wondering if that's going to have a new lease on life, or people have already just kind of written it off. But I thought it was really fun. Birds Aren't Real says, I love Dragon Age, but the new game just isn't it. It's a fine game, but it's not a good Dragon Age game. Yeah, that's a valid take. But that's different. But I hear you. Okay, I'm just more triggered by your inconsistency regarding game design and narrative, and then you praise Starfield. I think you need to be more specific. I don't know what you mean. Jaffe, stick to the main missions in Dragon Age. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of both. He says it's a cool ride. This is Durali, especially if you play as a rogue, which is what I am playing as a fan, I'm more sad than angry and fearful for, what is it? Mass Effect 4. I mean, BioWare hasn't been BioWare since the doctors left. I mean, the idea that, these things don't really last all that long when the teams kind of splinter, right? What are your thoughts on the Game of the Year DLC? I think it's fine. The only one that struck me as weird is when they're giving narrative. And Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of the year. But when they're giving best narrative to Silent Hill 2 and Final Fantasy Rebirth, now I haven't played much Rebirth, so maybe they changed the fuck out of the story. But Silent Hill 2, they really didn't. They added some stuff and they amplified and focused on some stuff. But to say that's the best story or one of the 5 best stories, that's a little goofy to me. But I made a video. I mean, I think all the, I love Jeff's show. I think the show is really entertaining. But I don't take any of these shows seriously, as like the awards mean something. I mean, I've won awards in these industries before. They don't really do anything. They don't matter. No one's going to hire you because you got some award. It just doesn't really work that way. Maybe it does in movies, but it really doesn't in games. So, but sure, I don't really care what wins. I like to smoke pot and watch the show with the stream and make fun of it and celebrate the games that are good and bitch about the games that weren't included. So Steven Souther, I can't see his whole name. I'm sorry. Let me move this. Oh, Southwick. Veilguard has the same level of hokey writing in places that the other games in the series did. As a big Dragon Age fan, I think it's the best entry since Origin. Cool. I mean, like I said, I think it's really good. I think maybe the reason it's a bee in my bonnet is, there's a lot of games that have come out this year or in many years that have a lot of similar issues. It's not well written or it's not as similar. I mean, what I'm not gonna, I'll name names later, but the reason I think it's a bee in my bonnet is because it's so clearly tied to a minority community. And so, the internet, as we all know, I'm not telling you anything clever, is so filled with a bunch of people hating on anything that is, in this case, but not only, but in this case, the LGBT community trying to sort of, survive. And they're convinced that they've run, they're convinced that the Jews run the media, that the LGBT people run the media. I mean, it's so conservative playbook that I think that's one of the reasons it sticks in my craw a little bit, which is like, look, come at me with Dragon Age criticisms about the game and the writing. I think those could be very, very valid. But when you're going to talk about the trans stuff, like Ricardo said, there was a trans character in the last Dragon Age. You don't have, I'm 15 hours in. I haven't experienced, not that it would be a bad thing or a good thing to experience, but I haven't experienced any of that yet. It just feels a little bit too calculated. It's like, there's a lot of things you could hate in the industry. There's a lot of games you could hate in the industry and be worried about or disappointed by, and that's fine. But it's just weird that this particular one, is the one that's kind of got you on pins and needles. A little weird. It's a little weird. Twisted Sis says, Jaffe, you realize half the people are trolling and don't believe in it or give a fuck about it. Sure, I do. And I know you do that a lot. I get it. But the fact of the matter is, here's the deal. Han Banana says, gays in games is fine, but it can't feel forced. Well, nothing should be able to feel forced, right? It should be good writing. But whether or not it's push back then on the bad writing and everything. The problem is, and maybe you can understand this as we're talking about this topic, but the problem is it always seems to be a lot of these types of people complain about bad writing only when it has to do, like, they can't recognize bad writing when it's bad writing if it doesn't have something that they feel is a minority character. Right? It's like, what about the bad writing in I'm just trying to think of a game that has bad writing, but yeah, I did see the Outlaws update. It looks great, Struckman. Complain about that shit as well, but it's not consistent. And so because of that, it feels loaded and it feels not genuine when they say, oh, I'm just complaining about the writing. It's like, it's weird that you tend to complain a lot about the writing only as it relates to LGBT games or heavily, people of color games and things like that. But yeah, I like the game. I like it. It's fun. It's not great. Mainstream critics like Maddie and Skill Up are not haters. I don't think Maddie's a hater. You can dislike the game. I don't give a fuck if you dislike the game. And I think that if you dislike it and you have, reasons that are articulated, I think that's great. I don't think Maddie's a hater at all. But I didn't bring Maddie up. Yeah, the Praise the Oak says the grifter scene is booming. I know. People are mad. But, I don't know, man. I'm going to add guests. Anybody wants to call in, they don't have to put themselves on camera. But, there's a lot of people who are just, who that's the thing is I wish the trolls would just call. We could actually discuss it and debate it. No, Maddie is not a bad dude. His reasons are totally valid. I don't happen to agree with them, but I don't have the same love for the franchise that he does. But for me, it's fine. It's all too infantile these days, says Soul Mike. I know, but the thing is, we all have to share the waters with these people, right? I mean, trust me, anybody who comes to my channel regularly knows I don't go out of my way to court controversy. I will jump right into the controversy if there's a reason to. But it's like it's what works. Can you clip and link the part of the stream where you answered questions we provided? I'm actually the segment's now out. Yeah, that's a members only video that I'm editing right now. Twisted Sith, that'll go up this week hopefully. But yeah, a lot of these, I don't know. I'm just kind of annoyed. I'm bitching about it. I got really nothing to say. I'm prepping a show for later this afternoon. That's where we'll talk games and stuff. But somebody was asking me, aren't I trolling people as well? No, I'm really not. Give me an example of how I'm trolling people. I don't think so. Praise the Oak says, I think it has a lot to do with the new guard thinking they can do better than the old guards. They end up becoming destructive for the medium. Yeah, there's no guard. I don't care. I don't need, it's so dramatic for these people. It's like, there's no guard. There's just people who make games and love games and write about games. And I don't know, man. You guys know. That's why I'm going to delete this in a few minutes when I'm done with it. Cause it's just like, I have nothing new to add. I'm just annoyed. I'm just here to vent for a few minutes. That's all. So, Marshmelon says BioWare haven't written a good game since Mass Effect 2. You can't make yourself immune to critique by. See, this is what I'm saying. Here's what Marshmelons wrote. Like, what are you talking about? He says BioWare haven't written a good game since Mass Effect 2. Possibly. I don't follow them that much, but fine. He continues saying, you can't make yourself immune to critique by screaming at the alt-right all day. Who the fuck is trying to make themselves immune to critique? The alt-right has done plenty of things that they deserve to be screamed at for that has nothing to do with the writing in BioWare games. Trust me, I don't need a list that comes from that. So my thoughts on the secret level, I don't really care. I'm not saying if people say it's great, I'll watch it, but it's not really my it's nothing they've shown so far has put it on my radar other than like, oh, that's kind of a neat thing. We'll see if people talk about it and say it's good. There's no evidence. You can clip it. A lot of people, if you don't discover it live, I delete things like this because it really offers no value and it just hurts my channel. And people are like, Jesus, Jaffe, because there are people who come to my channel that seem to genuinely enjoy the engagement of conversation about video games or media or weird topics. And they really don't want to get into this kind of, grifty bullshit. And I don't blame them. But because I'm kind of, sometimes the guns aim on me, I want to respond to it. But that's why I deleted it. It's not like I'm trying to hide anything. It's just, chums up the channel with crap. Right-wingers take gaming way too serious. Meanwhile, the left is literally claiming Hitler is taking office. That's not a grift at all to scare mentally ill people. Look, it's very, very different things, man. You can't say the left is literally claiming. Are some people on the left claiming it? Sure. Absolutely. Just like some people on the right are claiming that Kamala was a communist or a Marxist or whatever. But most people are worried about Trump, including his own party. If you look at the rejection of some of his cabinet members already, but most people are willing to go, hopefully we have enough guardrails in the country that his worst instincts will not be allowed to prevail. But, people are, this is what I'm saying. It's just like no media literacy. It's like, stop lumping everybody together. I have the capacity, as do most people, to look at the Dragon Age criticism and go, oh, you don't like the writing? Fair. Oh, you don't like that it's meaningfully different than the way Origin played? Fair. Oh, you're worried that because it may not sell well, it's going to affect that studio's ability to create Mass Effect? Fair. However, I would argue on that if this game doesn't sell and it's because it's poorly written, you don't want BioWare making Mass Effect. What you probably want is EA going, you know what, we've got this great beloved property. And maybe given that the key people who made Mass Effect, what it is that you love, are no longer really there, BioWare is just a title. It's just a signage over a door that people walk into. Find a team and give it to a team that really gets it. And, like the Bluebird, not the Bluebird team, but like they did with Silent Hill 2, right? I mean, but those are fair criticisms. Those are fair things to worry about. The other stuff is I'm sorry, it's just a grift, and it's obnoxious. It's obnoxious. Michael Struckman says, I'm doing a debate later on the topic of forever exclusivity on Battle Pass cosmetics. My argument is timed exclusivity is enough. I don't know what are my thoughts. I don't understand. You're doing a debate later, first off, where? On the topic of forever exclusivity on Battle Pass. My argument, I mean, if you're asking somebody to... No, I mean, it depends, right? But I mean, I would not want time... Are you talking about like Fortnite saying the Indiana Jones costume is exclusive, and once it's off this Battle Pass, it's gone forever, and now they're starting to say we're going to sell those things? Is that what you're talking about? Bow tie wearing young Republicans have been doing this since Gamergate. Why are they wearing bow ties? Maybe that's a bigger thing to worry about. All right, hang on a minute. Let me see this. All right, somebody named Mike. Mike is here. What's up, Mike? All right. Well, Mike, you're on if you want to talk. I'm from Germany. I learned to be quite grateful that our government is just boring and bland, says Durali. No ego and TV exaggeration. Oh, I know. There's this idea that most developers started as a boys club, and much of the new talent finds that problematic, and it ends up affecting the way games are made. I don't think people, I mean, I get it because they haven't made games or they're not currently making games, but I don't, there's this really inaccurate sense of I've had so many people on my time or my comments talk about back in the day, games were just made for fun and nobody worried about, what was going to sell. People made what they wanted to make. And it was like, dude, I was there. That's just simply not true. You were probably a teenager or a kid when you formed that opinion. And so everything felt like magic and it was amazing. And it was made in a way that really came from the heart. And I'm not saying that those parts are not included in the recipe, but all of the games that I made, 1993, are games that I had to pitch, that I had to get through marketing, that I had to get through the heads of product development. And there were ones that were rejected from me and other people that were deemed not commercial enough. And there were ones that were like, hey, we can sell that. So, this idea that there's a boys club and then there's this club, this is shit people are making up, and new people come in. There is a more diverse group of people along with the majority, which is still a bunch of white dudes making video games, and they're going to bring their own experiences. And if you don't like them, that's fine. But there's so many games being made. Maybe if all you do is play console games, I would get your concern, because there are less console games coming out because they cost too much to make, at least at the AAA level. I get that. But that's just the way that goes, man. Everybody's been demanding better and better production value. It's going to cost more. You're going to get less risk. You're going to get less games. But if you play up and down the budgetary spectrum, there are so many fucking games about so many fucking things that the idea of like, they're not making games for me. It's like, well, they are, but you got to do a little bit more. You got to do a little bit more searching. Mike, it's Jaffe. What's up? Mike, are you going to speak? What's the deal, buddy? All right. Well, I'm gonna kick you if you're not going to talk. You keep coming back in, but right now you're not muted, and it's not. You're not saying anything. Hang on. That's my dog, baby. Come on now. I love him, but Lord have mercy. I haven't seen any hate or nitpick towards Reichel. I don't know what that is. Ever notice how one side wants more inclusion and the other hates any? Gee, I wonder which side is evil and which is a bunch of bigoted fucking people. I mean, yeah, I hear you. Always the same talking points from both sides. There will never be progress, because the progress has to come from stopping the reasons people want to divide everybody. Quiz Coddle says the Dragon Quest creator claimed people push censorship on them, not us. Yes, there are publishers in America at a AAA level that are spending a lot of money that now say, I don't know why this is hard for people. I don't know why this is hard for people to understand. If you are like, if you go to a movie and you want to see tons of tits and ass and gore, you can see that, but that is no longer what the majority of big studio films are, right? Just like in video games. They used to be, and now it's not. You can still get those games, and maybe you're just like, a lot of these people are just like dinosaurs railing at the asteroid that's spreading dust all over the world, and they know they're dying. It's just like, look, you can still get those things. You're not a bad person for wanting that in your video games. But games cost a lot more money. The audience has to grow, and it's not going to happen if you limit your audience with a bunch of fucking, only boys club stuff. It just like if you want to watch something really edgy and very targeted, watch something on a small streaming service like Shudder or Peacock or whatever. But if you want to watch something on network TV or one of the big streaming services, probably network TV is a better example. It's going to be, made for as many people as possible. And to act like I don't understand what's happening. That's what's happening. That happens in every meeting. I don't get it. I don't get it. Jaffe, how would you implement speedster mechanics in Marvel Rivals? You want Quicksilver. I really don't give I hate Quicksilver. I think he's a terrible character. But I appreciate you love him. That's fine. I just hate that character so much. I don't know why. I think because the actor in Avengers Age of Ultron. But I mean, there's a few ways you could do it. I mean, you obviously can't slow the game down for everyone. You could in a bubble, but then it just becomes a gameplay about don't get within the bubble when he's activating the bubble. You know, I wonder if you could do something like, let me think for a minute. It's really hard when you're talking multiplayer, because you want to feel like you're fast, or at least like everyone else is slow. I mean, maybe you could do, he gets to be on the battlefield and position himself 5 seconds before everyone else's doors open. You know, you have to wait for the doors to open for the match to start. Or he actually is able to run really fast, or 3 times speed, so it's controllable. But I don't think you'd ever be able to get the kind of you know, almost freeze time and take the bullet and move it. And I don't think in a multiplayer game that would be, you know, acceptable. Dragon Age 2 says Durant has a trans reference in the Rose Brothel. I remember walking out of the room where the lady picked the game, spoke with a manly voice. I was shocked and went in for round 2. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. No, Twisted Sis says, Jaffe, you must admit the magic is mostly gone thanks to capitalist greed. No, it's not. No, it is not. Games are better right now than they have ever been. There is a game right now that I showed on the stream yesterday called While We Wait Here, which is one of the best games of the year. Don't tell me there's no magic in that game. Don't tell me there's no magic in TCG Shop Simulator. Don't tell me there's no magic in even the demo, because that's all I've played of Metaphor ReFantasio. Don't tell me there's no magic in Astrobot for the people who love that particular game. That's ridiculous. Maybe the magic is gone for you, and I can appreciate that. I get it. Maybe there's another medium, but I'm telling you, man, games are batshit, and it's only going to get better because they're getting easier to make and less expensive. All I'm saying, you know, look at me as the foodie, and I'm not a foodie in real life with actual food. I'm very simple palate, but allow me to be the guy, if you don't already have this person in your life and you're not already here in this mindset, to introduce you to the great meals being served on itch.io, on Steam, and even the indie sections of PSN and Xbox and Switch. Here's what I would say is, if the only reason you play video games is because you want the big bombastic AAA stuff, that's totally fine. There's nothing good, bad, better, worse than that. But I don't think you get a seat at the table complaining about, like, your complaint is valid if it's the really unique shit in that space is gone. Yeah, you're right about that. Okay. And it's never coming back, by the way, except very rare cases, like a Kojima getting somehow the ability to make Death Stranding and then Death Stranding 2. But it's never coming back. Not that it was ever there, because the games didn't cost as much as they cost now. But short of that, you just don't have a leg to stand on with the idea that the magic is mostly gone. And games are not interesting today. It's just not accurate at all. I'm reading the chat. Sorry, fellas. Yeah, Mike's a great listener. I don't know. He keeps coming in, then he vanishes. My friend gave me the Link's Awakening remake. See, I got to say, Kevin, I didn't like that game, but, and I love the 2D Zeldas, but I didn't like that game because I got to a point within 2 hours, and the only solve, I was like, what the fuck? And I spent like a weekend, and finally the chat's like, oh yeah, I needed a guide to get past that. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just like, no, I'm done. Because at that point, how do I know? How do I know if the game is going to be filled with things like that? How do I know if I'm stuck in a game because I'm not smart enough at this point, or because I have encountered a puzzle that's just poorly designed. A Goon says they are jacked up because of Rogan and Trump. They feel they can say shit now that they would not have flown out with the other. I mean, they can say whatever they want. I guess my question is, how do I get rid of these people from my life? Like, I mean, I can't, kick them out. I guess I could privatize my YouTube channel, but then I wouldn't be able to discover new people who, it's not that they have to agree with me. I have plenty of people, if you watch this show a lot, who don't agree with me at all, but they can engage in normal discourse. Steven Southwick says South of Midnight is going to be the next game that gets all the discourse. The game looks great, but people are already throwing Sweet Baby at it. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you actually took the time to watch that 30-minute documentary that Microsoft put out, I put documentary in air quotes because it's just marketing. But if you watch it, it looks really cool. The story sounds really cool. The art style is really cool. It is being creative directed by the guy who was the creative director of SOCOM 1 and 2, David Sears, who's one of the best game designers I've encountered in America. And I tried to hire him at Sony Santa Monica back when I was working there in the creative head over there. There's nothing about that game right now other than maybe saying the moment-to-moment gameplay looks very rote. Doesn't look bad. It just looks like you're going to get if nothing else, you're going to get a very cool world, a very cool story, cool characters, cool art style. It's a 10 to 11 hour game, which is what a lot of us say we want. But the gameplay moment-to-moment is going to just be a solid sort of third-person action game. That's the only real criticism right now you could level at it that's based on what they've shown. Unless, and this is why I jumped to unless you're a racist. The game may be poorly written. The game may take Sweet Baby Inc. initiatives and try to mind fuck you with them and brainwash. Maybe all that is true. But nothing you've seen right now says that, if you've actually paid attention. So yeah, if that game ends up shipping based on what it actually has shown and it gets this discourse, Steven Southwick, I would just say, once again, we're dealing with fucking idiots. And people are like, you can't call me an idiot. It's just my opinion. Well, no, you're an idiot. If what I just said, I'm sick of it. If what I just said turns out to be true, now you're going to get somebody taking the clip and going, Jeffy says, if you don't like South of Midnight, you're an idiot. No, you fucking moron, educated with a banana and an inner tube. Grifting fuck. No, I didn't. I said, if you watch the documentary and the game turns out to be what you see in the documentary and you hate it and you lay into it for no reason other than, you could say, oh, I hate third-person action adventure games. Okay, that's fine. Oh, I hate games set in the South because XYZ. Okay, that's fine. But to come at it and say, oh, it's fucking woke or anything like that, yeah, you're probably a fucking racist. Fuck you, you are. I mean, what do you want? You want the cover of being, you don't get to sit there and grift all day and then get all whiny when somebody calls you on your bullshit. Okay? So fuck you is what I would say. You racist piece of shit if you're actually going to come after that game. No, and I'm not saying you are coming after that game. I'm just saying that according to Steven, you're going to. So, Big Cat says, I don't get why you think it's difficult to understand. The majority do not want their narratives to be based around niche experiences or beliefs. That's what those titles that attempt this underperform. Okay. So what I'm troubled by so many things that you've written, but let's start with the fact that you think you can speak for the majority, but let's assume you can for the moment. Their narratives to be based around niche experiences or beliefs. Dragon Age is about a character. It can be whatever you want the character to be, who puts together this band of, whatever, wizards, fighters, whatever these people are, to stop these two elven gods from turning people into these brood blight slaves to destroy the world or some such thing. I'm not entirely sure how that narrative is. I mean, maybe it's symbolic of something, but I don't know what belief you think that game is telling you to have. But beyond that, does every game, seriously, maybe that's why a lot of times people paint people with that opinion. Big Cat is not very bright. Okay. I understand that not everybody always wants to go to a movie or watch a show or play a game that is dealing with subject matter that they can't relate to. That's totally fair. I get that. But don't you like to go to movies or play games that are about different kinds of people that aren't you, or expose you to different ideas? I mean, isn't that part of the fun? Not always. Sometimes you just want comfort food. Totally fair. But that exists. You act like that's all been pulled off the shelves. You can't play Call of Duty campaign mode and get that itch scratched. You can't play Ghost Tsushima and get that itch scratched. You can't play what sounds to be a great game, even though it might not run very well, Stalker 2, and get that itch scratched, or Indiana Jones. These games are out there. Why does everything have to be that, though? I don't understand, man. Johnny says, as an analyst, it's all data. For like 3 or 4 years, stuff geared towards women and LGBT have been raking in money. I don't know if that's true, have they? The studios are just trying to make more money, so they follow what's successful. I don't necessarily know that you can point to a lot of these. I mean, like the Ghostbusters movie, a lot of people cited as one of the first things that came out that was aimed towards women and or about women. I thought it was a fun movie. But there are a lot of people who laid into it, not because they said it wasn't funny, not because it wasn't good writing, but because they didn't like that it was all women. That's, I think, where people like me get annoyed. It's like, just complain about the thing you think you're complaining about, but in truth, you're probably not really complaining about that. Hello, buddy. So,
Ace peed, but only a little bit.
Where?
On his, I was just petting him, and he peed a little.
Okay.
Should you take him out just in case?
Give me a minute. I'll take him out again. Yeah.
It's also on his bed. We should watch that anyway.
All right, cool. The majority is obviously not going to Outlaws, Veilguard, Concord, says Ultra Awesome. The majority is going to Wukong, Helldivers. Well, I mean, Metaphor hasn't been a massive seller. Helldivers has. Wukong has sold well. A lot of that has to do with China and the story, but it's a great game. Love that game. Veilguard, yeah, Veilguard, Veilguard, I mean, Concord is its own thing. Veilguard, though, I think is solid. I don't think there's anything about it that makes people go whatever it's about. Dragon's Dogma came out this year, Dragon's Dogma 2, which was really good, but they kind of feel like the same game to me. They're both really good, but all right. Let me catch up with the chat real quick. I'm sorry, fellas. Games are getting less expensive to make. They are at the indie space. They're not less expensive if you're making a AAA game. No. Yeah, let me jump ahead. I'm sorry if I missed your chat. I'm trying to go in order, but there's a lot that have come. Is the counter argument that people related to the Call of Duty protagonist or AAA action game? Is the counter argument people? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, David Seeger says, I'm pretty sure majority of people are not super spies or whatever. It's not that, though. It's not that. It's the fact that they think people are pushing politics on them. And so, anywhere that they see anything that feels, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know what the argument is anymore. Right. I don't know. I just, I don't know. No one is saying Dragon Age is not cringe. It is. Yes, I agree, Ravnos. However, so is Dragon Age Origins 2 and Inquisition. But most of you were little kids when you played those and you never noticed how cringe the dialogue was. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I'm with you, Droptimus. The only reason people would have a problem with the option to have a trans person is bigotry and transphobia. They're not forcing you to be trans. It's just an option. That's right. That's right. Um, I was playing Dragon Age the other night, and I was doing this quest with I don't know what his name is, but he talks like Ricardo does. So, you know, Peruvian. And I was getting coffee with him, and we were talking, and there was this point where I could pick a choice between like 4 things or 3 things to say to him. And all the things have icons, right? So it's like there's text, and then the icon represents you being tough or funny or giving a thumbs up, or sometimes you get a heart, like you want to romance the character, right? And I've done that with some of the lady characters, but when I got the option to do it with this dude, I just didn't pick it. I wasn't offended that the option was in there. I wasn't bothered that it was in there. I was just like, well, that's not what I want to do. So I didn't do it. I don't know. I don't know. I can understand to a degree, says Tristan, for many people, gaming is escape. I agree. They don't want to see everything from everyday life reflected in their games. Well, what is it? I mean, that argument, Tristan, makes sense to me if you're saying we're making a game about political civil war. And America's, you know, I don't think America's really close to civil war, but we're making a game about how divided a country is politically. And people are like, oh my God, do we have to fucking deal with this? I just want something that's fun. I don't want to think about the fact that in real life, neighbors are against neighbors because of how they voted. I would get that, Tristan. But to have a character in a game who's a black person, a Muslim, a Jew, a trans person, a lesbian, or whatever, you know, what are you escaping from? The fact that people can be different than each other? I mean, no, you know, maybe, you know what it is? I think I figured it out. Maybe it's this thing that a lot of the political people, because they want to keep us divided. Maybe what it is it's that one of their talking points and wedge issues is they're coming for you, right? Let's just take the LGBT community. They're grooming you. They're coming for you. You can send your kid to school and they come home a different gender, right? And so in that, if you really believe that, then I would understand how seeing those characters in a video game might make you say, oh my God, these are the people that are trying to corrupt my children. I don't, you know, but the problem is, and maybe the reason people on quote my side have the opinion we do is not only do we not see it that way, it simply isn't happening in any kind of, you know, meaningful statistical way. And so we just look at it and go, it's just a lesbian. It's just a Muslim person. It's just a trans person. What's the big deal? Right? Maybe that's what it is, you know? Swaggle Rock. Oh, I get it. Says one of my friends went off about how games are too political these days. And then they said they should just be fun like Fallout, which he apparently thought was not a political series. Right. True. Yeah. Why Doomer says you're forced to be a straight man if you play Uncharted. So what if you're forced to be a trans character? I don't care at all. But you're right. I mean, a lot of people would take real issue with that, but I can't think of any mainstream AAA games where they say you will be a lesbian, you will be a gay person, you will be asexual, you will be non-binary, you will be a trans character. I can't think of any that do that. You know, I mean, you can't even think of any big Hollywood movies that do that, right? It's just, you know, so but they act like that's happening, I suppose. All right, reading the chat. Sorry, fellas. Will you play the Dark Souls games after Elden Ring? Says Batrol. Probably not right now. I mean, I love From Games, man, and I love the news that Sony might be looking, or I know they're looking, but Sony might actually acquire FromSoftware. I think that would be like, when I saw that news last night, it was the first time I said, okay, if they do that, they, not that they need, my ducats or anything, but if I'm reflective of at least a meaningful percentage of the audience, I absolutely will be getting a PlayStation 6 without question. Because if the only place I can play those games, at least for a year before they hit PC, is PS6, you goddamn right. That's how great I think FromSoftware is. I think Miyazaki is one of the top 3 video game designers of all time, at least based on what we know about him right now and what we think we know he's contributed. 100%. So, but I think when I finish a game like that, like when I finish Bloodborne, the last thing I want to do is jump back into a game like that. So probably not, although I really do need to finish that fucking game, man. Yeah, I saw Godslayer. It's an interesting point. He says, I think game developers are finally realizing people have had enough of romance options in games. Avowed is not going to have it. I mean, Avowed explained why they weren't going to have it. I don't, again, you don't have to do it. So I don't, if people enjoy it and it's not a big deal to put it in, I'm fine with it. Western video games, says Detrillist, is trying to appeal to the 1% while Japanese appealing to the other 99, doing record-breaking sales. I don't know if that's accurate, that Japan is, I think South Korea has done really well this year. And I think America's done great this year. Look at Epic, look at Fortnite. I mean, which game specifically, like let's take Star Wars Outlaws. Forget the fact that there were a number of bugs and there were a number of weird tuning things. Pretty much most of those are being addressed and will be addressed by this Friday. At that point, you're still going to have a lot of people that are convinced that that is a woke video game. And you guys know me, I don't finish video games. I finished that game and I'm looking forward. I played it on Ubisoft Plus. I'm either going to resubscribe or just buy the fucking thing because I like it that much. And I was worried this morning. I said, I wonder if I've unsubscribed to Ubisoft Plus, which I have. I moved my subscription over to EA Plus Pro or whatever the fuck it's called to play Dragon Age. Is my save going to be there? And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'll play it again. That's how much I enjoyed that game. Right. But so my point is, I played that game to completion. I didn't 100% it because, I don't do that, but I finished the game. And I'm like, what is woke about Star Wars Outlaws? I don't even understand how it was allowed to be painted with that particular cloak. I don't get it at all. So makes no sense. Okay. All right, David Seeger, good to see you, buddy. He's like, I left an hour ago. I know, but I'm behind on the chat. Bob Dobbs says they're just bigots, Jaffe. It's not rocket science. Yeah, but it should be something we could meet in the middle on. It should be something we could connect with these people and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop being so, Hey, Day One Patch Kids. What's up, Rotten Tanuki? Good to see you, buddy. Japan's gaming industry is held up by FromSoft and live service games. Keep in mind, Nintendo is its own thing. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's fair. Why don't I finish games, says Geno Soul? Because they get boring to me. Because I get the gist of it. I enjoy it. I have a great time with it. And then if it doesn't introduce something that, keeps me engaged. A really interesting one to me is, I love you too, Orion. A really interesting one to me is Marvel Snap, right? Marvel Snap is this card game, but every month I pay these guys $10 to get what amounts to maybe 6 or 7 new cards, because they do a good job of going, when we introduce these cards, it has a meaningful ripple effect across the entire experience. And in that, you get a wonderful, it keeps it from being dull, and it keeps you engaged. I've been playing it for 2 years. I'm excited. Brad Skagg, going back to Star Wars, says they argue she was uglified and that the writing is woke. Well, I don't know. I mean, Jesus, they're saying woke in everything. There's nothing woke. And I mean, there are a couple of characters that are like side characters that, I mean, it's pathetic that this is woke, but there are a couple of side characters that make it clear that they are lesbians, but it's not that it would matter if it was the main story or the main character, but it's not even that. It's like a merchant you can find on a planet. She's like, oh, me and my wife, right? That's pretty much it. But as for her being uglified, she's not a fucking, I mean, that's what's weird to me, man. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe these are, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I saw somebody do a picture of Tifa Lockhart as Han Solo, and her shirt was all unbuttoned and stuff down to like, her up, big cleavage and everything. And it's like, yeah, that's great. It's attractive. But, that's not Star Wars. It's never been Star Wars. Maybe the Slave Leia thing, which was very specific to the narrative, but it's not like Princess Leia was walking around in that costume all day long. It was one part where she had been captured by a guy who basically turned her into a belly dancer or whatever that lady was with the weird hair, whatever. And it's just like, what, I mean, seriously, think about how weird that demand is, that if I'm going to play a character who's a woman, she better be fucking hot. She's cute. She's a cute, appealing, very likable character. I would argue that, what's her name? Kay Vass is probably one of the most likable new characters in the Star Wars universe in the last 10 years. She's fun. She's funny. She's spunky. She's tenacious. She has a great relationship with that little Nyx dog, whatever the fuck it is. I just understand. I understand. Carlos says, Jaffe, how many devs do you know actually finish games they play? A lot, but a lot of them aren't playing everything, right? So when I was a developer, I played a lot less than I played now. I play almost not everything, but I play more games than probably anybody I know, including people online. But I don't finish them. I rarely finish games. I certainly never platinum them. I don't care about platinum games, but it's because you're making a game, you're tired as shit. How is Miyazaki a top 3 game developer of all time when he hasn't made a good game that's not a Souls game? I don't know. He just is. The games he makes, I adore. They blow my mind. They're the most immersive games I've played. The IP generation is astounding. The monster creation and the world creation and the way he tells stories through the environment is astounding. That's all I can tell you. Thank you, Smog. I appreciate it, buddy. All right. Drive by Joe gifted a Jaffe membership. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. I'm on this Talk Studio, so I can't really see any of that. So, but I do appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for that. It's very kind. Miyazaki also made Sekiro. That's not a Souls game. Cool. Who else do I admire from a design perspective? Controller Sport says, if a video game character isn't a hot woman, when will they ever get to interact with one? But even that, though, just go out. I mean, seriously, do you guys realize how many games are out there? I mean, go get a fucking cheap MetaQuest 2. And your mind will be blown by all the porn games you can put on that fucking thing. It's like she's in the room with you. It's just weird to me, man. Remember when Dove did that gaming partnership to push for normal women in games? Yeah, and people lost their shit. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it's not that I like to be liked, but I like to discuss things with people, and I like to have people who are smart but don't always agree with me. But it for me, maybe I struggle with it though, because you can't open that door without a bunch of people coming in that just are not smart, that also disagree with you. And that's the frustrating part, because it really does take a toll. And it's like, I don't care if you disagree. But it's when you disagree and you don't put any thought behind it, or you can't articulate it. That's the thing. And I don't know. Clearly I'm doing chats like this and I'm doing conversations like this because I'm trying to find a solution. Because you guys know I love doing streams. I love social media. I love making videos. I adore this. I would like to be able and have the opportunity to do this kind of thing, until I kick it, hopefully in a very long time from now. That's how much I love it. I love it more than I ever loved making video games. But there is a point though that you start to go, what is the way to balance this so well when you do the live streams? Like, you could just do videos and just never talk to people, but I like the live streams. It's more fun to me. Sound Test says it's far too easy for people to be disingenuous. Plus people really get off causing shit than having discussion. Yeah. I mean, maybe I just need to, I know people got mad at me when I started putting all my stuff behind members. Like, you can watch it, but if you want to comment, you absolutely have to be a member. And at least maybe that puts a little bit of a buffer where it's like, okay, if you are paying, you clearly think you have something worth saying. Let's have that conversation. Maybe I just have to do that for my own mental health and just for my own quality of the channel. Because I know there are people who come here that like to talk video games and they get tired of me beating this drum, and I get it. But it doesn't work that way. $6 says the best thing is to let everyone have their own opinion and realize it doesn't affect you. But it does affect me, because when you are the person doing the stream or making the videos and reading the comments and wanting to engage with the community, it's a fire hose. And it's frustrating. And again, anybody who knows me, I think whatever you think of my opinions, I've certainly earned enough credit in the bank, or I should have with you, to go, Jaffe doesn't have a problem with people who disagree with him. I have all kinds of people on this channel that disagree with me. And they're meaningful parts of our community. So, Ian says your chat is unbelievably negative. I have no idea why. It's always been a frustration. I can tell how frustrated you get when people are so close-minded. Ian, I'm with you. What do you recommend? You have any thoughts? Any thoughts? How do you fix it? Right? How do you fix that? Or maybe you don't. Yeah, Ryan, I try to stream on everything these days: YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I do meditate, but I agree it sucks as fuzzy. We have to revisit this over and over, but I think it's important. I think it's starting to matter. I'm seeing tiny improvements. Man, that's great. I'd love to. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Ravno says, for me, mid equals average tending below. I wanted to love The Last Guardian. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Journey I didn't like. I loved Flower, but Journey I felt was visually beautiful. The most beautiful fucking thing they've done. But I thought Flower was a better experience. So when can you call in? You can call in whenever. I've been putting the link up all day. Here you go. There it is again. The Nazi hogs are fucking it up for broke people like me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe what I should do is just create a lower cost tier. Maybe $4.99 is too much to chat. Maybe I should have like a $2.99 tier. Just, it's like that. All you get is you can chat live streams, but it's something for people who want to chat and be engaged. Maybe I'll do that. Because yeah. Seeger says, Jaffe, I don't think you can fix it fully, but I think engaging in counter. and understanding in the face of ignorance, and hate eventually erodes negativity. Yeah, but then you got a bunch of new ones coming in, you know. Mastidope, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up?
Doing a stream. What are you doing?
Just doing my dailies, being productive and stuff, and have your stream on in the background. Always like to hear your opinion.
Nice to keep you company. I love it. What's going on? What do you want to talk about?
So it's not a concern, but my point of contention I like to address is I do think you make some good points about expanding the market for the video game companies. You can't always go back to the well to expect to expand it, because every few generations we do die out and you have to go find the new hotness. But isn't Gen Z, by statistics, I don't have them pulled up, but don't they more or less care for free to play, your Fortnites and stuff, and buying more or less microtransactions rather than fully buying $70 games?
Oh, 100%. The new generation coming up is not, you know, we are a niche of a niche at this point. You know, I'm not saying there aren't young people that don't like traditional games. Of course there are, but you know, the number of people who buy a PS5 and play Fortnite and Roblox and shit like that are much bigger, or Call of Duty Warzone are much bigger than the people that are going, hey, let's discuss Dragon Age Veilguard or Star Wars Outlaws. Absolutely. 100%.
Right. So I see more of the younger generation, rather than buying fully dedicated hardware to play exclusive software, they more or less care for cross-platform play, like buying a phone to play Fortnite or a laptop and everything. So I think that has a big point in all this. Also, the other thing I would like to bring up is I don't think gaming companies are ever going to get back to making COVID level of profits, because the whole world is back out doing their own thing. And for them to want to get to that point is unrealistic. Now, I'm not saying that down the road we can't get back to that point, but just them, what they're doing over the last couple of years, you know, with laying off staff and everything, that's realistic in my sense, because COVID's over.
Yeah, I think we will get. I think it always goes back to the Sean Layden formula of there's only 250 to 350 million people who buy games, like core gamers, not like Fortnite, but like, you know, a game like a Black Myth Wukong or whatever, that play on those consoles and PC and whatever. And I do think that's going to expand. I think just because if you want to keep spending money on the graphics, you got to find a way to make the games more appealing to a lot more people. And I also think the friction is going to drop. I know people get mad when I talk about the cloud Mastidope, but I'll tell you, I was going to play this morning Flight Simulator that just dropped this morning from Microsoft. And this is a game that usually it takes forever to download, and then you've got to make sure you've got everything updated, and it's, you know, it still may not run. And I go to Xbox Game Pass and I play it in the cloud on my PC, and there's a server error. So I couldn't get into the final game, but from clicking it to running it to being in the main menu, it literally was like 15 seconds. So I think a big part of getting to new money is going to be making the accessibility of this stuff just like watching a movie on Netflix. And I do think we're getting closer and closer, and that's not going to be that far away. So I'm excited.
Yeah, realistically, I see maybe one more box. There will be a PS6. There will be handheld devices. But after that, with how NVIDIA is growing with their market share, they're the #1 cloud gaming service. I mean, Microsoft teamed up with them for cloud gaming. I don't know where xCloud is put into perspective with Microsoft teaming up with NVIDIA and their GeForce Now streaming. But yes, I do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets there. And but the main thing though is like, because a lot of people say, oh, you know, I wasn't even aware of this, because I've always understood that your distance to the data center is crucial. But apparently there's tech that is within 5 years away, and there's like 6 different things that the internet says one of these 6 things, if not all of them, unless something just crazy happens, is going to show up and get to the point where you're not even going to have that issue where you have to be close to a data center. So,
Right.
you know, I think it's ultimately, it's not going to be like GeForce got there before Xbox, Sony got there before all of them with Gaikai and all that. It's just going to be the norm. And it's going to be about what content you have on your box or on your service, which I think is great. I think it's great. Then we're talking about at that point is games and nothing else. And how can that be a bad thing? So, all right, buddy, calling in. I appreciate it, man. Talk to you later. All right, there goes Master Dope, fellas. Let me bring in Ray with the Iron Man picture in the background. Raymond.
Yo, can you hear me?
What do you got back there? You got Iron Man. Is that Nova? Who is that?
Yeah, I got Iron Man, and then right here is Dark Souls, the Knight.
Nice. But who's the Be Your Own Hero? Is that Nova?
That's All Might from My Hero Academia.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Very, very nice. All right, what's up, buddy?
Too. Doing good, man. I just had a quick question for you. I haven't listened to your whole stream. I joined a little late. But I had a question kind of on a topic you were talking about earlier with, I think you're wondering why people think the way they think or something with the transgenders or whatever. I think that, like, I asked you a question, like, would you be cool with the main character being a polygamist?
Sure.
You'd be cool with that? Well,
polygamy,
do you have a
like
line?
You're married and you have a lot of wives?
Yeah, or like, and you see like your goal is to maybe collect more wives or whatever it may be.
I mean, the game would have to be interesting, but I
sure.
don't have.
I mean, I guess what I'm trying to, I don't know where your line is, but
there is no line.
There's no
line in art and entertainment. I mean, look, if you had a character that was a pedophile.
Yeah, what if you're a pedophile?
I mean, if the game was interesting and it was about something, I don't think I would personally want to play a video game where it's the new Devil May Cry and just Dante happens to be a pedophile. I'd go, wait, what? I'd probably play it because I'm like, what the fuck is this? You know, I'm curious. But
so rapist, pedophile. There's
but
no
yeah, if you're talking about playing a game and it is written like it's like a movie, right? Like you can have a movie about a rapist or a pedophile, and you can go, okay, this is interesting because we rightly so paint pedophiles as monsters, but at the same time these are people that have been in our society probably since the beginning of man, or before we were back when we were not even Homo sapien, right?
Yeah.
And so if someone's like, I'm going to make a measured, intelligent look at life through this person's eyes, not to make you feel what they do is okay, but to at least go, here's a perspective you haven't seen before, I'd go, okay, I'd watch that. Okay, or if it was in a game, I don't want to diddle anybody in a game, but I would go, but no, I don't think art should have a line, but I do think there is a point where if you say I'm making mainstream entertainment, there are probably some things that we can all agree that are not where you want to go.
Do you think that there's a line of normalization to worry about? Like, I think there's a difference between just like sharing a lifestyle and saying, hey, this is different, there's something here to be enjoyed or learned, but making it normal. Like, I think that's the problem, is like, hey,
well,
look,
what do you mean? Give me an
example.
Define normalization first so I can understand where you're coming from.
So normalization would be like, you create a character and you make their acts in the game not frowned upon or not negative. So maybe the people they interact with treat them like what they're doing is fine. And there's a sense of normalization to it, like they're loved, they're accepted.
Sure. Yeah, I think let's take the pedophile character. If you made a video game with the pedophile NPC that was part of your merry band of RPG characters in Dragon Age, and people were like, hey, there goes Frederick. He's a great swordsman, and boy, have you seen the kid he's fucking? Holy shit.
Right.
I think if that became normalized, that would be really unfortunate for all kinds of reasons.
So that's your line, right? So that'd be a line for you?
Well, I would say yes. I can have sympathy for people who do awful things, but that doesn't mean that I want that sympathy to translate into support for their actions.
Right. And I think that is kind of like what's happening here. Like,
explain that to me. How? So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but am I being hyperbolic when I say you are conflating or you are comparing lesbian folks, trans folks to pedophiles?
No, I'm
Okay.
comparing the notion that people don't want a certain line crossed in their life that for them is a line that is normalizing something that maybe they don't want their kids or loved ones to believe is something that ought to be normalized. So I'm not saying one is worse than the other. I'm not conflating them and saying this is worse or this is equal. I'm saying that individuals have a line, and I think one of them could be transgenderism. I think homosexuality was one. I think we've probably crossed that line just to a large degree.
I imagine
But I
racism or black folks was one, and we've probably crossed
yeah,
that.
exactly. And even interracial marriages. I think that
Right.
there's lines that are people don't want crossed that are normalizing certain acts, and I think that's the issue.
But wouldn't it? Yeah, it may be the issue, but wouldn't it be great if the people who had that issue could look at people like me who have this position and this view and go, okay, what is this probably? Is this probably trying to normalize pedophilia or serial killers? Or if you actually look at the research and you talk to people who have either are transgendered or have people in their family that are transgender or whatever, or friends who are trans, and go, is that, or is this more just like, look, it's these people have finally been able to find each other probably on the internet, come out of the closet, accept who they are, and they are simply another variant, nothing better, nothing worse than every other variant out there.
Yeah, I think you're right in a lot of ways. Like I think that's the challenge here, is that I think we definitely want a society where we value people of all genders and sexualities that aren't bullied or mistreated.
Right.
But I think also there is that little bit of understanding where I can understand where a parent or a father may not want their children to think that they can just choose maybe to change a lifestyle by the culture. And I think that you have honest people who legitimately are, dealing with these issues in their life, like transgenderism, and you have some people who are just cultural hop-ons. And there's a big, I think, burst of that right now. And I think I can understand, like, even a society coming together and saying, maybe this is a line for us that we don't want to
think where
normalize.
it
And that's
becomes
the challenge.
difficult,
That's the
I
balance.
think where it becomes difficult, but it doesn't mean because it's difficult, it's not possible, is that when you are on the side of a progressive issue and good and well, a lot of the talking points that are out there are not accurate. And you are being asked to, it's almost like a lot of the people who push back against the LGBT stuff go, you're asking me to sort of live in your fantasy world. Right. And it's like, that's what it feels like for people who are on the other side as well, maybe, because it's like, I'm not going to mollycoddle you because, not you, but a person who feels this way, because you have been told what a trans person or a lesbian or a gay person is. And I'm not going to, you want these people to live quietly because it's uncomfortable for you because the information you have isn't accurate. And I think those people on the progressive side go, okay, then let's educate you and get you accurate information versus telling us to shut up about what is the current version of the civil rights movement or the gay movement or whatever. It's like, so it's not that I don't hear you. I think you make a good point, but to go after it with the way you're suggesting, or at least I think you're suggesting, almost really suggests that what you really want is, here's the solution to keep the peace. And I think keeping the peace is not acceptable for people who are marginalized. They don't want to keep the peace because the peace is a shittier quality of life than you and I have to put up with. And why is that?
Yeah. That's interesting. Keep the peace. Maybe I'm trying to keep the peace. I think that the bottom line I'm trying to point out here is that there is a line. I think everyone has a line. Everyone on earth has a line. And who's to say,
but the line
who's
moves.
to say your line is right? Who's to say your line right, is the correct line versus someone
No,
else's
well,
line?
I think my line
How
is
do
the
you
correct line.
how do you navigate that?
You don't have to. But what I'm saying though is there's a difference between going, let's just say you, Ray, let's say for you, your line is normalizing LGBT folks in entertainment. I'm not saying it is, but let's, for the sake of this, let's say it is. I would totally defend your right if you were saying there were people that were telling you you have to play games and watch movies with those things in it. You have to. You have to. Fuck you, Ray. You have to do it. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is creative people are saying, we like this, we feel this, we believe this, we are this, whatever it is, and we're making our shit. And it's okay to say you don't like it and you're not going to buy it, and maybe they'll go out of business. I don't have a problem with that. You know, you can read the market poorly, or you can push an agenda, or you can push a line, or you can push a worldview too quickly for a lot of people, and you can do so at the expense of your business. That's totally fine. What I take issue with is the cruelty about it. If you don't like Dragon Age because there's trans people in it, just don't play it. And you have a right to yell about it, but maybe you shouldn't, because it's annoying and it's cruel.
Yeah. How do you feel about I feel like I feel you on that idea, and I agree with you like so much on that idea.
Mhm.
I think the problem that people, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I think the problem that many people have is when they take a already beloved franchise or something that's already been established one way, and they add in this type of stuff into that franchise. There's a sense of force there where it's like, well, I love this and I have to.
Yeah. I think bad writing is bad writing. And I think if you do that in a way that maybe, you know, there are some places where it's built in, like Doctor Who. I don't know if you watch Doctor Who, but it's like, you know, they regenerate, you know, so every time they get a new actor, the actor can be whatever, because it's a different body. It's like a morphing, you know, but that's baked into the DNA of that character. But I absolutely agree. Like if you have Iron Man in the back and you want to have Rescue, who's the female Iron Man, or you want to have Ironheart, who's the female Black Iron Man, just call her Ironheart. They don't call them Iron Man. And right. I would agree that might be, you know, or have, you know, Jane Foster as the mighty Thor, but it's the girl Thor, but they're still, you know, Thor. I think that's great. But yeah, you're right. If you are going to go in and start gender bending just for the sake of doing it, and it doesn't make sense, I would agree. That's not good, because it's bad writing.
Yeah,
but,
and I think that's why you find a lot of that pushback with games like Star Wars. And I mean, Dragon Age, maybe to some degree, it's somewhat beloved, but it's not quite as beloved. But even
speak to Dragon Age first, though. Talk about Dragon, because I've only played Inquisition and I've played the new one, right? And to me, every time it comes up, people say, but Jaffe, Dragon Age 1 is very different than 2, and 2 is very different than 3, and now, or Inquisition, and now Inquisition is very different than Veilguard. So isn't, as it relates to Dragon Age, isn't that kind of part of the way they do it?
I've played, I played Inquisition and the one just before that. I can't remember. I can't
2.
Remember. Oh, 2. Okay, Dragon Age 2. Yeah, I've played those 2, and they're different. They're very different in like their stylization and combat and things. But I don't remember it being so different in their social, cultural aspects, as far as like their messaging, as far as like characters.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's somebody then. Yeah. I as somebody who clearly is a passionate ally of the LGBT movement, I would still, if I was an executive and I saw what they were doing, and if I could look at Dragon Age 1, 2, and 3 and say, yeah, it's always been a little queer and queer coded, but you guys are going really far with 4 or Veilguard. I don't think that makes sense. If you want to make a game like that, that's cool. We probably can't spend the same budget, but we can have that conversation. But if you want to make something called Dragon Age, of course you can push some, you know, stuff in there, just like the series always had. But yeah, I would agree that but I don't have the history with that. But I have a great history with Star Wars. And I don't see how Outlaws is any different than any other Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars has always had, hell, I was a kid in 77, saw it in the theater. Everybody was writing think pieces on Princess Leia being the first kind of, wow, it's finally cool to see a woman on screen who's like, fuck it, I guess I'm the one who has to save our asses because Luke and Han are arguing all the time about, you know, the trash compactor. What a wonderful smell you discovered and all that. Although that was Leia who shot it, but whatever. So I don't know how Star Wars Outlaws fits into that.
Yeah, and the only thing I think of with Outlaws, I haven't played Outlaws, but I think oftentimes what I think the field is maybe of the public is when they make a female character abnormally OP when it doesn't make sense to. Like, I mean, we all love Wonder Woman, right? But it makes sense. Like, she's superhuman, she's powerful. But when you
who doesn't make sense?
Like maybe like a Black Widow, or like maybe you know, like
Black Widow. What you're saying? Black Widow doesn't make sense.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind because she's normal. She's not super,
but she doesn't have super strength, or I mean, she's
But that one's difficult because she's been so highly trained. But I mean, like,
so give me one you're talking about.
Gosh, like, you remember seeing Die Hard 4? There was like some villain in there. You probably don't remember.
I mean, I've seen it, but it's been, I don't remember.
Yeah, there is a villain in there who was like going toe to toe, punching.
Okay, Die Hard 4 is like 25 years old.
Yeah,
pick
it's
something
a long
in the
time.
last 5 years. You want to pick
Okay,
Rey
like,
from Star
what about
Wars? A lot of people don't like Rey.
Is it Blondie? Is the one, the action Atomic Blonde? Maybe like.
I haven't seen that. Charlize Theron.
Okay.
Lucy. What about Lucy? You see Lucy?
No, I have not seen Lucy.
With Scarlett Johansson, where she is able to unlock 100% of her brain. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's a neat one. That's also superhuman. But like something like Atomic Blonde, or like just the notion of like.
Let's take Rey. Let's take Rey from Star Wars. Everybody picks on Rey. Okay, so Rey, who, you know, happens to be the granddaughter of Palpatine, who somehow returned, but let's assume that that's, I mean, you know, I don't think that was, I don't know what they ever built Rey to be. So let's assume Rey just in The Force Awakens is what we're talking about, a character that, let's assume she's not anything other than just what they told her she was, which was just some trash from whatever planet she was on. I forget where she was. It wasn't Tatooine. Where was she?
Something like Tatooine, though.
yeah. It's really cheap to shoot in sand, so it's like, you know. But yes. So you know, let's assume she was just normal. So yeah, I guess I would get that she was probably overly successful at things. Sure, I didn't hate her. I mean, she wasn't a very interesting character, but she was really kind of, she felt very, in a lot of ways, Rey's a very, I mean, total separate thing, but maybe the thing a lot of guys don't actually like about Rey is Rey feels very sexless. Like, out of a, you know, she's one of those characters, one of those women you see on the screen and you're like, I don't get a sense of any kind, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like she's kind of a sexless being, unlike, say, Leia or something. So but short of that, though, yeah, okay, so she probably had a lot of abilities, but I don't, you know what, here's what I would say, Rey, different Rey. Here's what I would say, Rey. I would say that you're not wrong if you want to criticize the writing in Force Awakens, where Rey, because they didn't even hint she was some kind of amazing granddaughter of Palpatine, probably comes off as a poorly written character, because it's like, wow, she can do anything. But I think the reason a lot of us on the left struggle with that is that it's not like the male characters in movies and games haven't also been gifted with that sort of Mary Sue, but you never really hear the complaints as much on that, but you certainly hear them all the fucking time when it's a woman. And so the complaint of it being poor writing doesn't land as strong as going, well, it's probably more misogyny, because if it was really poor writing, you would have probably complained about, you know, wow, you know, I mean, I don't know what, you know, Tony Stark's a genius and he's rich and, you know, he is charismatic and he gets all the women. It's like, you know, but he's a drunk. It's like, okay, you know, maybe eventually, but
I definitely think you're right in some sense with the men. The double standard there, but I do think, I don't know, generally, and I also think there's also a social construct that has already kind of solidified man as a strong man, men characters more as the strong guy, the heroes, where I don't think we need as much context building to.
Let me ask you that. Let me cut. I guess I would agree, but it doesn't make it any less hypocritical, right?
Well, I would just think that why can't we do the same then for women, like create more context? Like I feel like with Ray there was no context. Like I said, with Wonder Woman, most people don't care. But like with someone like Ray, when there's no context for why she's so strong or why she's so powerful, there isn't, and there hasn't been also a social construct around her as around female characters as well. You're like double, missing. You're like missing, swinging and missing twice there, and so like. I don't I just don't know why they can't add. So that's why I would more lean towards poorly written character than just.
Yeah, I think Ray is a poorly written character. Absolutely, there's no doubt. But I also think that there's a lot of poorly written characters in geek fiction, and the ones that are men don't get half the scrutiny for being poorly written. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I would just say at the very least, though, the male characters at least have that social construct of like the male strong guy, where we have at least that to go by. Like, well, men are heroes, men are strong guys. Like, there's at least
but that's just social conditioning, like you say. I mean, that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, but that's why you don't have outcry. I'm just pointing
but maybe the outcry though should be, hey guys, wake up, because the reason you're feeling the way you do isn't entirely the argument you're making. You also need to tear down the social construct that you've been raised with that you haven't questioned. Because the minute you question it, you go, oh yeah, that's ridiculous.
But do you think there's still a little bit of that, more so than just social? It's a natural construct as well. The male hero. I mean, it's not 100%, but I would think largely, generally, man is the protector, the provider. I think naturally, and even evolutionary biology, right? Like that's kind of like.
I think you get into a lot of. I think at that point you get into a lot of assumptions about what it means to be a provider, what it means to be a protector. So yeah, you can argue that physically, a man has more frequently, the majority of the time, a man is going to have a higher percentage chance of being a physical protector. But a woman is probably going to have a higher percentage chance of being a protector when it comes to organizing for the family, or making sure that if the man goes out to hunt, she remembers, hey, he always forgets his fucking quiver and arrows. Let me put these by the cave in. I'm just saying that. And when you get into fiction is always metaphor anyway. Right. And so it's not a literal experience. It represents something in our lives, which is why it resonates. So the idea that man provides and man protects and woman doesn't, I think depends what filter you're looking through. And maybe that's the reason, by the way, and I say this with respect, because you see what's on my back wall. I see what's on your back wall. I see your face. You see my face. We're both fat. We're both nerds. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why do you think it's the nerds that care so much? Is it because maybe the nerds are like, let me have this one thing. There's this one place where I can feel I'm never going to be alpha unless I get certain parts of my life in a certain direction. And I'm not saying people should, but I'm never going to be alpha in the gym. I'm never going to be alpha in the club for the most part, unless you're super rich or something. Would you let me fucking have it here in this realm of kind of D&D, Marvel Comics, video games? And now you're taking it away from me there. I mean, do you think that plays a big part?
I think that plays a part to some degree. I just the only area that it makes some sense to me, like I've already stated, is just when it's already a beloved franchise or product, and I can understand why the nerd like me would want it not tarnished or not touched, or a book I love not changed, right? Like I think that's where I understand it. I don't understand it as much where what you were saying before, like if it's new art, new context, I'm not forced to watch it. I don't have to watch it. I don't like the idea of boycotting companies or products, but items. Like you can boycott item to item, like I'm not going to boycott Paramount entirely because they put something I don't like out, but I might boycott an individual movie, right? Like sure. I like doing individual boycott rather than overarching. And I think like sometimes maybe I think it ultimately falls on how much people love their item. Like when you really love something so much and it gets tarnished, it might spill over, right? Into
and maybe it's an age thing. Like I've lived long enough now to see my beloved Indiana Jones become just crap. And hopefully the game will turn things around. But the last two indie movies they're not Indiana Jones movies. They're junk. They're literally junk movies. But I grew up loving Indiana Jones. And so for me, maybe it's like, you just kind of get used to the impermanence of it all. It's like, I'm good with it. Hey, listen, thank you for calling. Thank you for being on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you, man. Thank you, buddy.
See ya.
All right. See you, dude. All right. If you want to call in, just like good Sir Ray, I will put the link up for you right here if you are interested in such shenanigans. There you go. People who desperately want to be alphas will never be alphas, says Dougie. Of course not. Of course not. The very desire to be an alpha is what keeps you from being an alpha. I'm not an alpha, and I have absolutely no desire to be one in any shape or form. The desire to be one is insecurity. Of course, 100%. Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go.
What's up, dude?
Ravnos, what's going on?
Nothing. You were
Okay.
really nice
I'll
to that guy.
I'll let you go then if nothing's going on.
You were really nice to that guy. God, I hate this fucking camera.
He was a nice guy.
Look, guys, I'm super skinny and like tall.
Oh, this is great.
What the fuck is
Ravnos,
going on
talk.
with
Nobody
this?
cares. Go.
I don't understand why people think that if there's representation, it's going to turn their kids into wanting to be trans.
Because
or gay,
because
or,
it is what the message.
Deviant.
It's the message they get. That's what I'm saying. When you have, and again,
But why are they so gullible?
Because they don't know. Because
then
they have
why
no reason not to know, right? I mean,
why is it whenever a female character in a science fiction or fantasy setting who isn't descended from a god has power, it's Mary suing? But yet, if some dumb little fucking whiny bitch who works on a evaporator farm suddenly finds out from some old weirdo in the desert that your daddy was a hero and Darth Vader killed him, here's a fucking magic sword, you're now a hero. That's not Mary suing?
No.
Because we had training for 5 minutes on the Millennium Falcon.
Okay, well, wait a minute, though. There's a difference. No, I don't get what you're saying. I don't agree with what you're saying. I don't have a problem with a lot of the things these people push back on. I got no issues with it. But in the case of those particular stories, Luke doesn't really become a badass until Jedi. Up until that point, he's getting his ass handed to him by the Wampa monster. He's getting the Millennium Falcon shooting the stuff at him with the laser, the little ball thing. You know, he can't save Ben. He's a whiny little bitch after Ben dies and stuff, you know. So but I think Rey right out the gate suddenly has all of these, not powers, but she's just like the kid can't lose. Everything she tries, she wins at, right? And I don't even have a problem with that in the sense like other people do, because there's a lot of characters that do that on the male side. I just don't think Luke is one of them.
Well, another example, and it is bad writing. Let's get that clear. Like Kay Vess.
Yeah, I like Kay Vess.
Why can't she just punch a stormtrooper in a helmet and knock him out? But yet I guarantee you if some dude was doing that, oh yeah, well, you know, because he's a big, strong man. Dude, have you ever been punched?
Yeah, I can't say it's right or wrong. I've seen enough people complain about it.
Silly.
I can't tell you what the complaint really stems from. Maybe it is the physics of it. I don't know, but I never had a problem with it. And I guarantee you that if Kay Vess, I mean, do you really think they would have been happy, even though I think it would have been cool if at the beginning she tries to punch a stormtrooper and she hurts her hand and it kicks off like a stealth mission, and then she goes and she buys some Star Wars versions of brass knuckles, and then it's like, I mean, I think that would have been
stun rod.
That would you have one of the
cattle prod.
You have one of those, but yeah, you could basically though have a stun brass knuckles, and that would have done it.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't think that would have solved that's not their big problem with this, because that's a minor. Yeah. It's like, okay, if you really want to break down the science of Star Wars, can you punch somebody through a helmet? Yeah, probably not. But you know, it's Star Wars. Nobody's that.
But have you ever noticed that, like, whenever there is a game that like tries to be like, hey, we're gonna have a female main character, because why not? And it's like, I agree, why not? And then they just always find a way to just do something that's just like, why didn't you think this out better?
Wait, what do you mean? What
like the KVS stuff. It's like, it would have been so easy. Like you said, they could have just had a story reason for how she could do it.
If I had been directing that game, it never would have occurred to me punching a stormtrooper and knocking them out. I mean, these are literally clones. I mean, this is the world that we're talking about. These are clones made from apparently the greatest bounty hunter or one of the greatest bounty hunters ever, right? Boba Fett's dad.
Well, I don't see that's I don't know, because with the new one,
Yeah, okay.
John
So let's
Boyega,
just
he
say they're
doesn't
okay.
look,
Even worse than
you
they're
know.
normal people, but this is a whole group that the Emperor has put together, and they can barely shoot. That's a joke, right? But they
I
can
only brought
barely
up
shoot.
this game because you were talking with that other guy about
No, I know, but I'm
you
just saying that the idea though of punching, like that's why I'm saying punching a stormtrooper in the helmet and knocking them out being a bridge too far when you're talking about a massive group of people that historically have never been able to fucking hit their target, and you want to complain about that.
Exactly.
It's
well,
like,
that's
come
the
on.
other funny thing. They complain about that too.
Right. Well, yeah, but they don't complain about it because, you know, they're not saying get rid of the stormtroopers though.
Yeah.
But somebody in the chat saying, but the Monkey King can hit people with the stick and kill demons. It's like, yeah, you know, it's magic. Whatever.
I know.
You know.
You would agree that there's pandering that happens, right?
Sure. Always.
And
there's
it's not
pandering
evil.
in every single fucking thing.
And there always has been. You know, whenever they're casting for a TV show, even back in the 70s, 80s, they're, let's have a female character, let's have a black character, let's have a this, let's have a that. That's not evil.
You're even pandering if it's a white male. You're going,
go.
let's put this star in because he's going to make us more money than this star. Oh, we can't get that star. So which star can we get that will allow us to make more money? The idea, there is this narrative these people have, and it applies to everything in video games. Like they really think there was this time where entertainment and art was made, or entertainment was made without any kind of consideration of the financial return on that investment.
Oh, I know.
And it's like, dude, they've always made choices based on what they think will bring more people in. And sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. But the idea that like, oh, Star Wars was made or Indy was made or Terminator was made without any sense of anything other than the art in James Cameron's heart. No, it wasn't. I'm not saying he didn't have a vision and he wasn't passionate and he wasn't a pain in the ass to get his vision. He still had to go to the people with the money and go, I'm going to make something that's going to be commercial and compelling, and I'm going to get your money back, and I'm going to make changes in order to do that, or I'm going to make decisions in order to do that in terms of casting and whatnot.
You really only see that with small budget movies.
Yes.
Like a perfect example would be the first Evil Dead. Sam Raimi and his friends, they made that movie the way they wanted it. They got some funding. I think they said they got it from dentists, which is funny. And they made what they wanted to make. And that
happens in the indie space, which is why it drives me crazy that a lot of these same people that complain, I'm like, dude, there's a whole fucking Vegas buffet of everything you're asking for, and you're ignoring it. People are doing exactly what they want without any care about any politics other than what they want to make. And they ignore it. They ignore it.
And they say, look at the industry. Oh, they're taking away the hot women. They're censoring everything. It's like, why do these people pretend Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't exist?
I don't know, but I have one. I gotta let you go. But I have one final question for you. Seriously, are you guys gonna do the hits when you go out on the road, or are we gonna hear like?
Is this a ZZ Top thing?
No. I was more of like a 38 special thing.
I know of the band. I don't know what they look like.
Right. Goodbye, Ravnos. Good to see you.
Later.
All right, here we go. This is Nikki Cross. What's up, Nikki Cross? Wasn't Nikki Cross a wrestler? Wasn't she the one that was friends with like Bailey, and then they got in a fight? Isn't that Nikki Cross? Anyway, point is, what's up, Nikki Cross? Nikki Cross. Well, you're on if you're on. All right. Yes, Zeke says ZZ Bottom. That's right. Okay. There we go. There's Nikki Cross. What's up, buddy? Can't hear you though. Are you talking? No, can't hear you at all. I don't have you muted. I can see you, but I can't hear you. So whenever you get that fixed, I'll keep you on. Just jump on in.
All right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great. What's going on?
All right. Yeah, I don't know why the Xbox headset's not working right.
No, blame Matt Booty.
Yeah, I was looking at you when you were talking about the haters getting to you. I've been in entertainment pretty much all my life, and you always get people who love you, who hate you, and it seems there's very little in between.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the way I look at it is, not only do I go through it, you go through it. Tom Cruise goes through it. Every entertainer in the world, no matter what you do, and I consider even casting entertainment. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to ignore it.
Well, there's a lot of big differences between me and Tom Cruise, but
Well, of course.
but Tom Cruise goes to the set, his day is everybody loves Tom Cruise and then he goes home. My day is I'm on camera and I'm streaming and I have real-time engagement. So, but I get what you're saying. So you do casting for motion picture shows, correct?
No. I'm an entertainer myself, so I do a little bit of everything. I've done comedy, bands, you name it. And
But you're like a performer, like an actor?
yeah, I do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I used to act when I was a kid.
Would I know you from anything or no?
No, it was all commercials. My
Okay.
mom worked for CBS, and anytime somebody didn't show or they couldn't find somebody, they would just use me in a commercial.
So then explain to the audience, or tell me I'm wrong, that if your mom is working there and you've been in that business, my understanding, and I was only peripherally engaged when I was out in LA and trying to get into film and making student films, going to film school and stuff, or going to school for film. They cast, even if there's no quote political agenda, there is always an agenda to casting, which is we want to put the right people in, unless you're making a small indie film that's going to help increase our chances of making a profit. Correct?
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, I mean, it's a weird process because I never went through casting. It was always what would happen is if somebody didn't show, because I was a kid at the time, I was probably
all right. So it's
7,
nepotism in
8.
your case. You didn't really have to work for it. You didn't have to earn it, Nick.
No.
I understand.
But at the same time, I've seen people go through it, and I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I think it just varies. I think when writers, directors, they look at these scripts, they already have in their mind exactly what they're looking for.
Yep.
So if they don't find somebody who fits that mold of exactly the look, then they just got to go with, generally, Hollywood just pushes people in their face.
Well, yeah, but if you are making a big budget or a medium budget movie, my understanding is the executives will come down and say, here is your list of like 30 people that we are accepting in the role of, super cop or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And you can fight that if you really want to have Daniel Day-Lewis come out of retirement and be super cop. Sure. But if the studio is going to spend $350 million in the budget, they're probably going to be like, you know what? We appreciate that, but take Tom Holland or Marky Mark or The Rock. Those you can pick. Those
that's generally what happens. But there's times, Star Wars you brought up is perfect example where they just grab people out of nowhere.
Yeah, but Star Wars is the brand, though. Star Wars is what gets the butts and seats. No one goes to Star Wars because The Rock's in it. Can you imagine? The Rock and Star would be horrible.
No, I wouldn't want to see that. I don't think anybody would.
But, all right, one last question for you regarding this, because there was that show on about Nickelodeon, the kid actors and all the horrible abuse the kids deal with. How real did you find that to be? Not in terms necessarily of your own personal experience, but do you think that's an accurate thing that kids in the entertainment business are really, at danger of being abused?
I think it's not as bad now. You have to remember, this isn't something new. This goes the whole way back to the start of Hollywood.
Yeah.
You read like Shirley Temple's book
and
Judy Garland, and Shirley Temple, she was abused, and look at what they were putting kids in back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They had these short skirts. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Supposedly, I just found this out the other day, and it really upset me because I'm a Disney fan, but supposedly Walt wasn't the nicest person either. I don't think he abused anybody in the way that sexually, put it that way.
I think my understanding is Walt Disney was pretty much asexual. If you've read the book by Neil somebody, like a 400-page bio or biography on the guy.
Yeah.
They said they never saw him with his wife ever, any kind of intimacy, and he got really enraged when the animators would draw Mickey and Minnie like fucking each other and stuff. It was just like, I never want to see that again, when he would fire people. But my understanding is, a lot of people will say, oh, he was a Nazi, he was against black folks. And the more you read, the more it starts to sound like he was a Nazi, like a lot of people were in America, until it became clear what the Nazi Party was.
Yeah.
And when it came to black folks and folks from India, it was more, he was very supportive. It was just, he was a man of his time. So he would call people things that at the time isn't what you would say today. But back then it was like, it wasn't acceptable, but he was just a guy in America in 1930 or whatever. But it's hard to know really what the truth is about him, but I've heard both things. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
His abuse wasn't so much that. I mean, I've heard them rumors, and who knows? I wasn't there. And like you said, back then it was the norm, so people weren't they just didn't think about things like that. It wasn't in the public. But what I heard was there was a young actor, I can't think what his name is. It's the kid that Peter Pan was modeled after. Okay. And somebody had written a book, I think it was one of his assistants or something, about how he was treated. And I guess Walt used him from the time that he was a kid. I don't know how old he was when he found him, maybe 7 or 8, the whole way up till he was maybe 15, 16. And started getting pimples, and it was like that time Walt like cut him off. Like, I mean, Walt didn't even tell the kid that they were firing him. The kid, he couldn't get in touch with Walt. So he went in his office one day, and the secretary told him, "We don't need you anymore."
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to accept as an adult how expendable you are to business, but you're an adult and you kind of know enough going in from people who have hopefully raised you and stuff. But yeah, to be a kid and buy into how special they must make you feel in that industry, on the set, and it's all very family and everyone's laughing and you get a birthday cake, all that bullshit. And then you're just no longer needed and they stop returning the calls. I mean, that's gotta be brutal if you're not prepared for it.
Especially since Walt Disney, I mean, that kid was Disney for I don't know how many years, 10 years.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's not Disney anymore. And of course they weren't getting paid anything back then, or hardly anything. So they found him in some sort of abandoned building dead one day. And they didn't even know who he was. They buried him on that island in the middle of New York. And it wasn't until they re-released one of his movies. I don't know if it was Treasure Island or something like that, but they re-released it, and the press was looking for him to ask him questions about what he's doing now and everything. Nobody could find him, and somehow through, I guess, the hospital records, they found out that he was buried there. I still don't think to this day that they've given him a proper burial.
Right. Good God.
But
good God.
Did
you hear about the actor? Did you hear about the actor who? No, this is my favorite. He was in the West, like the 1800s, and he died, I think, like in a shootout. And the taxidermist, who was kind of he also buried bodies and stuff, had filled him full of formaldehyde or whatever, and put him in the shop window. Or actually, he was at the back of the shop, and he would charge people, like kids would pay, a penny to see this dead body. But he also was there to show, look at my wares. This is what I'll do for you if you die, and use me as your funeral director or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the body was so well preserved that the way they discovered it was the $6 Million Man TV show was filming in a haunted house. It was called, you can see this on, it's like the Bionic Man versus the something of the fair, or something like that. And it was like one of their 2-hour specials. and they go through one of the dark rides, and the camera AD guy was kind of going, let's move this. They thought it was a prop, and they moved it, and the hand broke off. And it was actually a fucking body that had been in this theme park, totally preserved, that they thought was just like a horror mannequin for like 30 years. I mean, so, you know, it has nothing to do with acting, but I thought it was fun. All right, Nikki Cross, thank you, buddy, for calling in. I appreciate
All right,
it.
yeah, keep your head up, man. Seriously, you know, the way I think about it, think of everything you've done and everything you're doing now, and just lift above it, because you're going to get it no matter what you do. I get it. Every time I go out and do a show, there's always somebody there that's going to be negative. You can't do anything about it. If they want to be negative, let them be negative, but don't let them bring you down. You know?
Could I maybe hire someone to hurt them or kill them?
You have enough money, you can do whatever you want. Look at Hollywood.
That's true. Goddamn right. All right, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. Seriously. All right,
have
man.
a great day,
See you, Nick.
man.
You too, buddy. There goes Nikki Cross off into the night. Thing. That's nice. Nice guy. Nice guy. Okay. Listen, fellas, that's it for now. I'm gonna go prep some videos, prep a Gabbing Games for later today. But thanks for hanging out with me, letting me vent, shoot the shit, and that's it. That's all I got. Be well, be safe, and hopefully I'll see you on a future show. Bye, you guys.